All right. Let's get fired up here.
Maximum freedom. Read.
Stay on target.
Maximum freedom.
Stay on target.
Maximum freedom. Read Rothbard.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Wizardry Wisdom. I'm Kenny the Wizard. Today I'm joined by Dan and Robert from ActualAnarchy.com. They are doing a podcast and also doing a website about my favorite topic, which is anarchy. How are you doing this week, guys?
Doing great, man. Loving life. How's Daniel doing?
Doing well. I was letting ladies go first, so I didn't mean to have that big pause in there. It was a little awkward.
That's all right. We'll edit it out in post, so. Anyway, well, you know, I kind of like to start out with all my guests, just kind of a brief talk about how you got into the liberty movement, how you found out about liberty. So Dan, do you want to start us off? Just kind of talk a little bit about how you got into the movement?
Sure, yeah, and calling it the movement feels a little bit weird. It almost feels a little left-leaning in a way, which I guess is a little bit appropriate for us because, and I'm going to speak for Robert a little bit, but we grew up together, and I think that we identified with being Democrats growing up,
Really?
Mostly because back in the day it seemed as if it was the right wing, the conservatives, who were wanting to impose morality upon people through the force of the government, and so we were of the mind, well, you know, the government shouldn't be involved, you know. So get them away, and that was sort of what the left meant to us back then. It was keep government out of the bedroom, you know, human rights, civil rights, all the good-sounding stuff. So that's kind of where we came from.
And part of the anti-war left as well.
Yeah,
Robert.
Yeah, I thought Robert was going to jump in there, but yeah, we were against wars and all the you know, problems that you hear about in the news. And we'd often, you know, be in his front yard in the basketball court, just talking about all the problems in the world and how we'd fix them. Little did we know that we were, you know, being little central planners ourselves, but at least we were conscious of issues going on in the world, and now we have a bit of a framework to be able to understand them better, and we think that, like Doc Anarchy says, the prescription is freedom.
Yeah, definitely. Robert, what do you have to add to that?
Yeah, Daniel said it pretty well. He missed a bunch of parts. We definitely started off as lefties. We went to a liberal arts college, and there were all kinds of protests all the time at school, but we never really got involved in them. And then towards the end of my college career, 9/11 happened, and that was a big moment, of course. And I don't know, it was a couple of years later that I started getting into, like, listening to Alex Jones and conspiracy theory and that sort of thing. And I was completely convinced, and I still am, that, you know, 9/11 was totally not according to the official story.
Yeah,
but
that much is clear to me, too.
We would have yeah. So then we would have these discussions about, well, okay, the world is all messed up. What is the solution? What's the answer? Is it like Alex Jones says, that you just go back to this constitutional government and it's just like a reset, and then what happens is that all this wealth will be created and the government will just grow back up to big again, and it'll just be this continuing cycle of revolution and regrowth, and that didn't seem like any real solution to me. I mean, it would be nice in the meantime, but as a long-term solution, it didn't sound like anything. So then Daniel started getting into these economics books, and one year he got me all these long economics books for Christmas. I think it was like Human Action, Anatomy of the State, or maybe it was Man, Economy, and State. A book by Ron Paul and a few others. And he's like, man, you need to read these. And I never did, but I watched a bunch of YouTube videos, guys like Larkin Rose, Stefan Molyneux back then, these kind of things, and I thought about it a whole lot. And listened to lectures by Murray Rothbard and other people at Mises. And man, it was definitely a many-year process before I finally accepted full anarchy. But, for a while I was just, okay, yeah, the state's terrible, but we still kind of need it for these certain things. And finally it just got to me that, okay, monopolies are terrible, so why would I accept monopolies with these things that I think the government should do? And I have self-ownership, and self-ownership is incompatible with violent aggression. So that's ultimately, I think, what convinced me the most.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. For me, it was a little different than a lot of the usual. A lot of people talk about, it took some time to accept the full anarchist position. For me, it was like I had all these instincts, and then finally someone explained it like logically what I had been thinking all along. So I took to it like a fish takes to water. But that's just wonderful. So. Let's talk a little bit about your podcast. I love the idea of actual anarchy. I mean, there's so much misinformation about what anarchy is, and of course there's 20 different types of anarchy and stuff like that, especially a bunch of types of anarchy that I really wouldn't consider anarchy. So why don't you guys talk a little bit about how you decided to get the podcast going and that whole process. Do you want to start us off, Dan?
Sure, yeah, there's a little bit of a history behind that, and I'll try not to leave too many gaps in this. So Robert and I, we've been exchanging ideas and videos and books, and apparently he doesn't read the books, but that's okay. We have great conversations, and we've had conversations for years in person, over the phone, whatever. And eventually we got to a point where I started doing a website based on the works by Murray Rothbard, and we wanted to do a podcast, and we were sort of talking about them as two separate ideas. Like he'd say, he wanted to basically record our conversations and put them out there for the world to see or listen to. And I sort of had the Read Rothbard thing going, and then I was like, let's just merge them and make them, the Read Rothbard podcast, and let's do this. And we started out very much kind of blindly feeling our way around. Our first couple of episodes are pretty clunky. We're mostly just beating up on Bernie Sanders or praising Uber, things like that. And then we started getting into pop culture and news events. And after some time, we just sort of stuck with that theme and started getting the idea that perhaps it was a way to make inroads with people who may be familiar with a particular movie, like a cult classic movie or a newly released movie or whatever, that they all have already seen and be familiar with. And so then when we talk about that movie, but from an anarcho-capitalist perspective, it'll give a little bit of meat to the bones that they already have. So rather than just these nebulous constructs, they actually have something to already have familiarity with it. And so we continued on with that through the end of last year. And then we were talking, and we're like, we're not getting a lot of traction with we were doing well as far as, like, we're concerned. Like, if anyone listens to us, we're happy. But we were like, there's got to be a way to get, like, anarchy in the name. And so we were just shooting back and forth some ideas, and some of the ideas were half decent, so I started putting them into, a domain search, and actual anarchy was available. I'm like, crap, man, we got to just do this, like there's so much misinformation out there about what anarchy is. There's all these people going around in response to Trump, smashing windows and claiming to be anarchists. There's all this dribble, like even the Anarcho-capitalist Facebook group is now gone ANCOM. And we're like, how can they have anarchy but then impose all these rules upon people? They've got to have a state apparatus, right? So we're like, okay, we're going to correct this. We're going to take all this crap that they're throwing out there, and we're going to say, no, that's not what anarchy is. This is actual anarchy. And so we retitled the podcast with that. We still have Read Rothbard, but now it is audiobooks for Murray Rothbard books. And then we also have another one called Enemy of the State. These are all on iTunes, so anyone can find them. And Enemy of the State are lectures by Murray Rothbard, and there's like 50 or 60 of them. We release, 2 or 3 a week. We're almost done, though. We're almost done with all the content we have. But, it's still like 50, 60 hours of Murray and cracking jokes in his Brooklyn accent at you. But then we transformed it into the actual Anarchy podcast, and everything we've done has been seat of the pants, kind of learning as we go. We feel like we've been improving with our ability to have banter and make some kind of relevant points. Centering it on movies seems to help. It gives us an anchor point, and then we can veer off and then come back to. We started introducing guests, and that has gone really, really well lately. I don't know, anything else you want to add, Robert, to the podcast story?
Just on the origin of the switch. We had been titled the Read Rothbard podcast for many episodes, like 3/4 of a year, I want to say, or 2/3 of a year. And I just felt that it was an unsearchable term. Like Rothbard, first of all, Rothbard, in economic circles, he's well known, but economics is a very small field among the general population. And so it's essentially an unsearchable term. Read Rothbard. I mean, there was a tiny little meme that goes along with that. And that's kind of what led us to initially title the website, and Dan picked that out. And I thought at the time it was great. But for a podcast that talks about like pop culture and movies, it didn't really quite fit. And I was at a party, a Christmas party, and I was talking to people about my podcast, and they asked me what it was called. And I told them it was called Read Rothbard. And they're like, well, who's Rothbard? And I was like, well, he's this dead economist. And they go, you make terrible life choices, Robert. And I go, I'm sorry. I know. And so Dan was right. I was like, we need to get the word anarchy in there, and then he came up with the actual anarchy name, and I thought it just fit perfectly, and so we went with that, in that we show, actual instances of anarchy, because anarchy surrounds us all the time, everywhere. We're always making anarchic decisions when you're choosing who to fall in love with, who to be friends with, who to spend your time with, whatever, what job to get. There's no regulations in government telling you have to do this, that, or the other. And to link it to movies and have instances of anarchy appear in movies and be able to talk about it that way, it's a good bridge, like Dan said.
Yeah, that's awesome. You were talking about how it's an unsearchable term, and I had been looking for a site just like this, readrothbard.com, especially this Enemy of the State podcast that you're doing, which is basically all of Rothbard's lectures that he's been doing. I've been wanting something like this. I had to do it the old-fashioned way, which was just like trudge and slog through YouTube looking for all this stuff to find all of these lectures and stuff on that Murray Rothbard gave, and I was wanting a centralized location where it's already there, and you guys have already done it. We need to be promoting this, because I think Rothbard, I always hesitate to go like full fanatic about Rothbard, because people always talk about it, there's a cult of personality and all that. But really, I just have not seen anyone that is smarter about these types of topics than Murray Rothbard. He's so clear, and like you say, he's a pretty funny guy. Like when you're listening to his podcast, but when you're listening to his lectures, he's a funny guy. He makes some jokes, and of course maybe it's just me that gets the jokes, but I just absolutely love it. So that's awesome, guys. That is really, really awesome. One that I don't see up here that maybe you've already done is, have you guys heard his lecture on Keynes the Man? That's a really, really good one. That's quite funny.
Yeah, that one lives on YouTube somewhere, broken up into like 5 or 6 different parts. I've listened to it before, and then I've also read Murray's book, Keynes the Man, which is actually pretty insightful as well. So, yeah, to your point, Read Rothbard is not a complete thing just yet. We're still working on it. There's the series of lectures that are on there, but they're all the onesie-twosies that are out there in the world. We still have to pull those in. And there's a lot of work still to be done. And unfortunately, there's only the two of us really working on this stuff. So it's kind of slow going in some respects. Though I will mention, now that we launched actualanarchy.com, and it's only been up for, 2 or 3 weeks, Robert?
Yeah, I think we're on week 3 now.
Yeah, and we were pulling guests out of the Tom Woods Facebook group and also soliciting articles. And we started getting flooded with submissions. A lot of people write things for their own sites or their own blogs, and they've allowed us to post them. But we've also got a lot of writers writing exclusively for us. And it's really awesome. Like, it just really took off in this organic, sort of spontaneous order fashion, because we only intended actualanarchy.com to really host our podcast and, our occasional writings. Like, I rant occasionally from now and again, nothing like super scholarly, but Robert likes to do some long form stuff. He's a writer himself, and he does really good stuff. So we expected to have a handful of things, and now we've got like 200 articles on there, which is just overwhelming to have that happen when the expectations were so much less.
Yeah, well, that is that I think you guys are doing great work there. I wanted to talk a little bit. You touched on this briefly about podcasting in general, finding guests, finding topics, things like that. What is you guys' process on how to find all that stuff, Robert or Dan, whoever's the one that does that, I guess.
Well, Daniel's really been excellent about finding guests. He will post out into, say, I'll come up with, usually it's me because I'm the big movie watcher. I'll usually watch a movie, like I watched Dallas Buyers Club. We saw it on a website. It was like top libertarian movies. I forget the actual name of it. Dan might remember. And it was like their number 1 movie. And so then I went and watched it. And wow, she was so right. It was absolutely 100% like this libertarian manifesto, basically. So I suggested that we watch it. And Dan would post in the Tom Woods group, hey, we're going to do this for this. Does anybody have any strong feelings about this movie? Do you think you can come on and talk about it? And we got Doc Anarchy to come on, and he ended up being able to just this amazing guest, being able to talk about all this medical stuff that neither Dan nor I would have been able to bring to the conversation. And, we ended up being a really good episode. But that's basically the process. I'll either watch a movie or read about a movie and then suggest it, or Dan will watch a movie and suggest one, and then he'll put it out there. And then people that I feel strongly enough to respond have come on, and every single one of our guests from the Tom Woods group has just been knockout. It's just amazing. Everyone's so smart and knowledgeable about this stuff. It's really fantastic.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you're listening to Tom Woods, you got to have something going on upstairs, because I mean, he's saying things that other people aren't saying. So when you say the Tom Woods group, are you talking about his exclusive supporting listeners group, or the bloggers group?
The supporting listeners group, which unfortunately Robert is not a part of, because he's out writing a book right now and has limited bandwidth from the satellite internet that he's got.
Yeah, I'm not a member of that group either. It's sad, but I'm like a super cheapskate, and so I'm like, man, as much as I love this, like, he wants me to give him actual money. So that's how I got into the bloggers. I was like, well, here's something I can justify, because I've really been wanting to like have a platform to talk, and this way I can get in with like-minded people. So yeah, I don't know. I've been thinking about it. It's just like, man, just give him a little bit. He's doing so much work. You've definitely gotten your money's worth already. But that's just
right.
Me.
Well, I just recommend, I think the minimum is $5 a month, and you will get so many ideas sparking for your own sites and your own podcast in there that it's worth way more than that. So I'd pony up the $5 and just get in there. It's great. It's one of the few areas where it's still worth going into Facebook for.
Ooh, that is high praise indeed. Although, I will say for myself, I enjoy getting on Facebook and just mixing it up with the trolls, just because, I don't know, it's something about my personality. I like to try and out-troll the trolls, and I have some success with it, just like, They expect to shut you down with their crazy trolliness, and then you just come back even stronger, and then eventually they give up. And it's funny, I actually have a little GIF that I had my graphic artist for the website make for me. That's my wizard character shooting a fireball, and then it explodes into the site name, and that's my victory meme. Is just whenever I get them to just quit the thread, I'm just like, and now I declare victory.
Very nice.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
So anyway, well, I think that's really cool. Very smart. Yes, you're right. I need to just get in there because I'm really interested. I'm having a ton of fun meeting everyone and learning more about liberty and learning all the different viewpoints that people have. And so you guys are probably right. I just need to get in on that. So also, I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the articles on your site that I found pretty interesting. There was this one called, where did it go? Here it is. I borrowed money and they expect me to pay it back. And you were telling me that this is actually a Facebook conversation that you guys weren't a part of, but you did some commentary and posted it. I just think that this is just hilarious. What do you guys think?
Well, the one thing I'll say about this one is that the contributor to it didn't give us a high-res image, so unfortunately it's a little bit hard to read. But this is the kind of thing that we're just looking for the site. So if any listener is interested in contributing, come to the site. There's some contact information, or you can comment below, go to our Facebook page, whatever. But we like the idea of being able to post these arguments that people are having where leftists and the other opponents will say the most ridiculous stuff. And so this is one of the examples. Another one is by one of our writers, Stephen Clyde, who he went in and trolled the ANCOM page by acting like an ANCOM and saying that doctors are bad because they're capitalists. And it's this whole long thread. It's another one on here, and I think it's actually more visible because it's a larger image. But it's just a fun thing to throw up there that mixes it up between, the longer form articles that actually have something to say. These are just kind of like, I don't know, little hubris, like funny things to have on there.
Yeah, I think that it's good that you guys have both, because there really is a place for both in my mind. You have some back and forths with people, and then, something that I like to talk about a lot is how really when you're having these discussions or debates, arguments on whatever on Facebook, the chances of you converting the person that you're talking to, I'm going to go ahead and say are virtually nil. Like if they're so into their ideas that they're going to just come after you really hard and come up with all of these arguments and stuff, like you're probably not going to change their minds, or at least I haven't yet. But I always want to think about like the lurker who's just kind of watching this unfold and trying to convince those people, and maybe they change their mind. The problem is that you really don't know if you're being successful or not. And that kind of seems like something that you guys are doing. Do you guys think that that's a good way to try and go about it?
I think so. I think whether you realize it or not, you are doing good because you are providing that viewpoint out in the world, especially on a lefty site like Facebook. I don't know where you're at, but all my friends and all my relatives and whatnot, my feed is basically full-on solid lefty. So anybody with the guts, the bravery to come out and provide the opposing viewpoint, or at least I think the sane viewpoint that we have, is even if it gets shouted down and screamed down and whatnot, there are, like you said, the moderate, like the reasonable people who are just reading it and looking at it, this person is just screaming. This other person is providing rational viewpoints. Even if I don't necessarily agree with those viewpoints, this person certainly seems to be more reasonable. So, it might spark something in their mind for more investigation at a later date.
Yeah. Well, so we're kind of starting to get close to the end. Is there any other topics that you guys would like to discuss before we give everybody where to find you?
Why don't we plug your book there, Robert?
Yeah.
Well, I would if it was in any kind of state. I mean, this is going out fairly soon. The book probably won't be ready for another many months. But if someone's listening to this in the future, the book is called Kit Tamarack, Wizard for Hire, and it's an action-adventure story with a fairly strong libertarian theme, but it's not necessarily overtly libertarian. I think anybody is going to be able to enjoy it, whether you, which is the whole idea, right? You're spreading the message. You want everybody to be able to read it. I guess it's a lot like, not to put myself in the same category, but it's a lot like using fiction to normalize a thing that people think is extreme, like, say, Alice Shrugged or something like that. She's done far more to convert people than I think maybe Ron Paul.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think it's get more and more libertarian type stuff out into the culture, especially to counter all this SJW lefty stuff that's coming out of the indoctrination centers these days. So yeah, Kit Tamarack, Wizard for Hire. Coming out soon.
What's the name?
Kit Tamarack, Wizard for Hire.
Kit Tamarack, Wizard for Hire. Well, we'll certainly be looking forward to that. That sounds right up my alley, because I'm a huge fantasy nerd. And I think you're absolutely right. I am always encouraged by anarchists and libertarians who want to write novels to spread the message, but not be overtly preachy about it. You mentioned Atlas Shrugged and Ayn Rand, and as good as it was, like, pretty much everybody's complaint is that there's long periods of exposition about the ideas in the book. And so a lot of times that can turn people off. And so I think what you're trying to do, just try and get some libertarian themes into the story and have those there just kind of in the background. You're not throwing it in everyone's faces, but when they're done with the book, maybe you planted a couple of seeds in their minds. So I think that is absolutely wonderful, and we'll definitely look forward to that. So with that, why don't we go ahead and Dan or Robert, why don't you just give us all where we can find you, what are the various projects and their locations, and so that we can make sure and let all the listeners be able to find you.
Sure, yeah. We run the Actual Anarchy podcast, the Read Rothbard podcast, and Enemy of the State. Those are all available on iTunes or wherever podcasts are sold, even though they're free. We run actualanarchy.com, readrothbard.com. We may be doing some other things here and there. We've got Robert's book going on. But that's pretty much, what we're working on. If anyone's interested in writing for us or sharing some of their content, we will, cross-link and promote their stuff as well. So reach out to us in any of the avenues that you can. And thanks for having us on. It's been really fun.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it, and thank you to all the listeners for listening. And check these guys out; they're doing good work.
Appreciate it.
The Chipmunks. CHIPMUNK. We're the Chipmunks. Guaranteed to brighten your day. Do 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 do.